Let's take a look at airships here. This is another interesting Euro design. My wife and I just played this for the first time, and of course, if there's someone else out there who does an intro or overview of the rules, I'm not sure if there are in English. I think so, but I'm not positive of this. You're probably better off going with them. Because I'm less familiar with the game, I'm going to be kind of working through the rules, remind myself, but also provide you guys with the context for what I'm playing when I do the playthrough. Okay. So this is kind of an interesting game, actually. You have it's a game where you're trying to collect victory points. It's a Euro, right? Victory points are going to be these stars, which exist here, and they also exist up here in different formats. And in order to get them, you basically just are building these airships for the most part. But to do that, you're going to have to generate points by buying other things that aren't necessarily airships. Now, some of the other cards will have victory points on them, and those the problem with those is that if you don't want that, if you replace that card, you lose the victory points for it. Whereas when you build airships, you give the victory points for them all along. So some of these others are kind of like, well, you might get points for them, you might not. And let me explain what a card means, looks like, whatever. So each player is going to start with their own little board, their little marker for their player. Let me grab the German, he's a little closer to me, which is got some information. On the other side, there's a second era card, which will come when this era, this is like a little tile in the midst of the deck, is going, when that gets revealed, we flip over to the second era and these cards become available. And also technology changes. The deck is stacked in different technologies, basically matching these. You have light on top, then kind of medium colored and dark on the bottom. And, well, things get more expensive and bigger as you go. So you'll see we got bigger numbers here and such not. Let me try to figure out how to explain the cards. These are your little bonus markers. They'll also serve as flags to indicate that you've built part of the Hindenburg up there. And you got these weird dice. So these guys are 1s, 2s, and 3s only. These guys go from 2 through 5. And they've got different distributions on them. And these go from 4 through 8, actually. And they kind of correspond to the eras. This is the earliest stuff, medium era, late era. It'd be kind of cool if they were different shades of blue, since they had to have the dice made to begin with. Everybody's going to start off with one starting card. The pale blue starting cards are all the same in terms of effect, but where they differ is the color border around them, and that indicates where they get placed on your board. You're only allowed one card in each little border area. This pile is a little different. That's where your built airships go, and they just get piled up there for victory points. This board here holds cards that are available for purchase, I guess, if you want to call it that, for acquisition, as well as the airships, and then the Hindenburgs up here. And then there's this little thing here, which whenever you build an airship, you get that. And it acts sort of like a bonus chip. We'll see that in a moment. The actual play of the game, basically, whoever's the first player, and I'm going to start with the U.S., and work my way around counterclockwise because that's how I like to do things for whatever reason, is going to first draw one of these cards. It gets placed on the board, okay, and if there's no room for it, the furthest card along on that gets dumped, and then the rest move forward and it gets placed on the last space there, just in case, you know, and then the card that gets dumped gets discarded from the game. And then you're allowed to try to pick something up. And to pick something up, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be rolling dice of a certain color to get to a certain score. Now, what's not terribly well described here is the having trouble finding a word here. Yeah, the interplay, that's not the one I was looking for, but it works, between what you have, dice that you have here, and these dice here. Let me try to do a better job of it. So whatever you have on your board, you may have dice indicated on lower left corners of some of your objects. Those dice indicate the dice that you're allowed to roll. So at the beginning of the game, you're allowed to roll 2 white dice. Everybody has that ability. And that's what you're going to roll whenever you try to get something. You can only go for things that have the dice that you need. So for example, here, I can roll 2 white dice. If I have 2 white dice, I can go for this, and I need to get a sum of 5 on those 2 dice. Now that's going to be tough to do because, well, it's not impossible, but the way these dice are modified, are set up, there's 2 1s, 2 2s, 2 3s. 5 is what? About the average that you'll get, but you're going to have to get average to get that. In order to help yourself, you have these markers. You're allowed to play one of these for a +1 to your total dice. And you could expend this, and it goes back up here if you have it, for a +1 to your total dice. There are also other things that are going to give you potential pluses. Let me see if I can find, yeah, here's some examples of different things. So these here give you, this will give you a +1 on any red die. This gives you a +1 on any colored die. It's sort of a gray bonus, the equivalent of one of these, except that you get to add them in. Okay. Some of the other abilities here, well, this guy gives you a fistful of 3 different colors of dice instead of just 1, right? Some of them will give you more than 1. This is a victory point modifier. Over here, these guys, not only do you get a die whenever you need to roll it, but you get a couple of bonus markers if you have some that you haven't got in your pool, so you throw them in as soon as you buy that guy. These guys give you dice, but they're only notional dice. So he gives you a black die that always rolls a 7, in addition to any black dice that you can roll. Now you're limited to only rolling the number of dice that are actually in the game, so even if you have like 5 white dice over here, you're only going to be able to roll 3 of them. But these guys don't count against that because you don't actually have to roll them. And then these over here are kind of tricky. I already explained these. These over here say, they don't give you 3 white dice or anything like that. They say, if you take 3 white dice that you have available to you, you can turn them in for 2 red dice for that given throw. Okay? Now, at the beginning of the game, the only thing people can really go for are things that only have white dice on them. The reason is you're not going to be able to score high enough. So for example here, if you can roll no red dice, you're probably not going to get a 4 or higher. Over here, if you rolled 1 white die and no red dice, you're probably not going to get a 7 or higher. These are the dice that you're allowed to score towards this point total. So you have however many dice you're allowed to roll, and you can roll all of them. They can be colors that don't count if you want. There's no point in that. But for example, if I wanted to go for this, I could roll 2 white dice, right? And maybe with my bonuses, I'd be able to get to a 7, but I'm only allowed to count 1 of them. And then, you know, I'd be better off if I had a red die in there. So in general, what you're going to be doing is trying to produce the higher valued dice over the course of the game. Now early on, white dice are good, but as the game progresses, they become less and less valuable to you, and red dice replace them, and then black dice become more valuable. A couple little things that I haven't mentioned yet. If you fail to get something, you get to transfer one of these into your bonus pile. Whether you succeed or fail, after you take a roll, you're allowed to turn 3 of these in and get another turn right afterwards. Okay. what about the Hindenburg? So constructing the Hindenburg works just like if you were going for cards. So this guy here, you can count a white die and 2 red dice. You need to get 11 points. If you win it, though, your points depend on whether the Hindenburg's built. If the Hindenburg's never built at the end of the game, you're only going to get this white little weird holy star here, which you're going to get like only 2 points for that. But if the Hindenburg's built, you get the full value of the thing. The Hindenburg's built when all 4 of these have been taken. And when somebody succeeds in them, they put their little flag here so that it indicates nobody else can go for that portion. I think I kind of mentioned this. Whenever you build one of these suckers, you get one of these. Now you can't start building the Hindenburg until one of these stacks of 3 cards is completely played out. And these are all open. You can look at them. There's actually 2 extra cards in each level of these. And these cards, the base cards all get played out, so players get them in their hand or they show up on the board. But then there's additional cards from later decks. So we've got something like this. You know, this is from the standard starting deck, and then this will be from the first era deck, it's called. Okay, so where were we? Right. The game ends in one of 2 fashions. Either when the Hindenburg is built, and then all these score at full value, or when all 4 piles are completely cleared out. Now remember, the Hindenburg can't even be started until one of these piles is cleared out and down to the bottom. Oh, I'm sorry. No. Not all cleared out. Only 1 card at the most is on each of the 4 airship cards. And then the game ends. And that happens at the end of a turn, which I think means everybody gets the same amount of actions. I'm not sure how well turn's defined here. I don't know if turn is defined. See, they talk about what a person does as a go. I don't think you have to go completely around. I think if one person puts things to the point where all these cards are down to 1 or less, or where the Hindenburg's finished, the game ends immediately at the end of their go. They just use different terminology in different places without really worrying about it. That would be my guess. Anyway, we'll give this a shot. When my wife and I played, we played that all of these had to go out, and still the Hindenburg did not get completed. So, interesting either way, I guess. But in 2 players, it was very tough to get the Hindenburg completed. But I think in more players, we're going to see that as more likely, just because more people might be willing to invest into, you know, trying to get those extra victory points. Obviously, if you started down that route, the other person would be trying to end the game quicker by clearing out the other airships. Anyway, I've chatted long enough. Let me send this up as an intro, and then we'll start playing.